no secret. It's plain to see. I love you, and you love me. It's no secret. You know it's true. You love me. What seemed to me is in the middle of the night. Only then can I feel your heartbeat. Till something's not right. Together I see you and me, always and all time. But not everyone would agree. To them it's a crime. It's no secret. It's plain to see. Yes, I love you, and you love me. And it's no secret. You know it's true. You love me. Yes, I love you. Each day I think of you, looking for some sign that you feel the same way too. And I know you're mine. We can't use no telephone, but others can hear. And all I get is a dial tone, but the message is clear. It's no secret, and it's plain to see. Yes, I love you. I know you love me. It's no secret. You know it's true.
Hello, Miss Andrea. How are you?
I'm channeling my inner Lauren because I have my black mock turtleneck on today.
Here we are. We're twinsies, and we didn't even plan it.
No, we didn't even plan it. We didn't talk about it beforehand. It just happened.
It just did.
So,
Hello. I think we are streaming on YouTube as well. I'm Lauren Van Hamert from Beltline to Broadway. This is Andrea Kaler from Coloring Broadway. And we have this show called And I Know Things Now to talk about musical theater and mindfulness and what musical theater life lessons we can glean from lyrics and from shows.
yeah, the not so sexy title is Life Lessons that you can learn. But, since we had to come up with a cute, witty musical theme, drink some water, lady, drink some water. So it's I Know Things Now. I mean, also known as Moments in the Woods. So, yeah.
Yes.
Talking about today. What's our plan of attack? You not dying. That's actually a really good plan of attack. Off you go. You go recoup yourself, and I will vamp. And I see that Laura Frosty is here with us. Do you want to put yourself on mute while you hack up along,
Okay.
or are you good? Okay.
Sorry, COVID sucks.
It's such a truth.
I'm sorry.
It is such a truth.
That's my political commentary for today.
Yes. So we can vamp a little bit while you're like getting your
I got my Beauty and the Beast mug. I'm good. I think I'm good.
You got your Beauty and the Beast. I need one of those. I actually started getting out my holiday decorations this afternoon, so that's that's where I am in my world.
It's time. We skipped over Thanksgiving and we're jumping
honestly, like the best thing that I have heard this season is Thanksgiving is a day, the holidays are a season. They said Christmas. I have my own definition of the holidays, which includes all of the things that are holiday-esque for the rest of the year. So it is a season for me to live in the red and green or the blue and purple and white space and decorate my house. So that's, yes, it's a whole season, not just
in the happy place, in the happy space.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, one thing we can talk about if you're game, and this is so interesting to me. So I just did an interview. The podcast will drop tomorrow for anybody who's watching this. Tune in to the Beltline to Broadway podcast. But I just interviewed Dave Karger from Turner Classic Movies, and he is hosting a musical matinee franchise on TCM Saturdays at noon between now and the end of the year. The end of the year will culminate with a day-long marathon of That's Entertainment. So if you ever wanted to see every fabulous movie musical performance, That's Entertainment is it. I know, mind blown, right, Laura? I don't always know why people want to talk to me, but Dave and Warner Brothers reached out.
I was going to ask you how that went, because we have been, since that conversation, I have been doing a little planning about, some a coloring Broadway Annie relevant things. So tell me more about what happened with, what you guys talked about and what they're going to share and why.
So here's something very interesting. He puts musicals into 4 buckets.
Oh.
One bucket is a song and dance musical, like a Fred and Ginger, circa 1930s. The second bucket is a spectacle musical, kind of like American in Paris.
Okay.
One that has huge production value.
One where Gene Kelly just said, I want to do these 3 numbers or these X amount of numbers. So let's create it's the equivalent of musical porn. And
for Singing in the Rain, I mean,
yeah, we want to have these numbers. Now we need a story to tie them all together, right?
Yes. The third bucket is little known musicals, and I consider myself a musical nerd, and really kind of a musical historian, because I feel like I know more about musicals than normal people should, kind of like my friend Andrea. And so
I've got so much more to learn, though, always.
I do too, but I kind of, get lazy and I think, oh, well, I know it all. But he has these musicals that are little known musicals, like one that he's showing this Saturday called I'll See You in My Dreams, which stars Doris Day. It is a bio musical of this fabulous composer, Gus Kahn, who wrote so many amazing songs in the Great American Songbook. Yeah. So if you've never heard of him, you've heard his music for sure. And this is his bio musical, which I had never heard of. And then there was a musical from Dave's lifetime. Dave just turned 50. And so this month, Annie is the musical from his lifetime. Next month, Cabaret, which actually premiered the year before he was born, he told me, will be from his lifetime. In December, he'll be showing The Music Man, Flower Drum Song, Cabaret. And they're taking 2 weeks off in December. And I am so fascinated by this whole movie musical thing, and it's awakened something in me, because this is how I fell in love with musicals, is through the movie musicals, because I think they make I didn't grow up in New York. I know you didn't grow up in or near New York. And so movie musicals made musicals accessible before there was streaming.
I mean, and to go off on tangents like we always do, which is why we're here. But I remember 4 or 5 years ago going to at Broadway Con, they used to have like a Broadway business day, right? So like the day before was like a Broadway Con for business professionals in the industry. And I remember listening to a panel talking about, Broadway fans. And I'm like, ooh, like, let's hear about this, because I have a business that addresses the Broadway fandom. But their whole focus during that conversation and during that panel was how to get people in seats in New York. And I was like, what about the fans that don't make it to New York? Because not everybody can get on a plane. I am incredibly fortunate that I am savvy enough with my finances to figure out how to get my butt to New York as often as possible so as to be in the theater. But that was something that happened in my later life years. Up until then, it was right after 9/11 that the first time that I went to New York was. And that, was intentional because travel, and we were like, hey, let's go to New York and help with the rebuilding, but of the travel industry. But even after that, I didn't get there very often. So the fan that gets to experience these musicals only gets to experience them through the television. Or now I love what they're doing with being in the theaters and actually getting to go see it on a big screen at a theater where you get to go sit down and you're not in your living room where you still need to do the dishes and you need to clean up and somebody can call. Like, it helps create that theater experience. But that is one reason why I am always on the Broadway HD train of how do we get every musical that comes out now on the stage to have a pro shot? Because there are so many. Please tell me Strange Loop had a pro shot. Please tell me Beetlejuice had a pro shot. Because unless you live in a town that these, and I mean, I don't know if Strange Loop is touring. I hope it does, but it's also so niche and not as widely going to be acceptable as, say, Dear Evan Hansen, right? Like, if these don't tour, who gets to see them when, right? They're these beautiful things that existed with no record for people to go and partake of and fall in love with them. Like, I watched, hell, Moulin Rouge, not like my first musical by any means, but like I saw that in the theater like 6 times in a week because I was like, wow. And then also I will now put it on in the background while I work sometimes because I can, right? Like, and if we don't have these pro shots, Be More Chill, why isn't there a Be More Chill pro shot?
There definitely should be.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about pro shots and the digital audience, but it in no way impacts the amount of people who will go get their butts in seats in New York. In fact, it actually encourages it because the more that they know and love your musical, the more they are going to go see it and want to see it in the theater.
100%, 100,000,000%.
I think musicals and you.
Yes. I did just see right before we went on air, Mr. Saturday Night had a pro shot and will be dropping on Broadway HD in December, which is very exciting. Um, but we should have more of that. I wish we had more of that.
I mean, hello, if Into the Woods doesn't have a pro shot. And honestly, I mean, this is a larger conversation around how contracts are made. Like there are business layers to Broadway business that are involved in pro shots, which is, I think, why, and somebody who knows much more about musical theater and business things, but that was why when they filmed Anything Goes with Sutton Foster, they filmed it over in London. She went over and they had a different contract for the thing. They couldn't have filmed it here with the existing contracts and things that were in place. But like, why aren't I'm not gonna say why aren't they, because I am not involved in that. But please, can we start shifting the contracts so that they include that from the get-go? All right, I'm done.
Absolutely. And Laura's saying, come on, Sarah, if you can do JC, Jesus Christ Superstar on NBC, you probably could do Into the Woods too. And I'll just piggyback on that. We already know there's a pro shot of Waitress. When are we going to see it?
I mean, I heard that it was like 2023. That's, I mean, the rumblings I have heard. But all of these things, there is no reason with and I won't say cheapness, because yes, everything has a cost, but the cost of doing a pro shot has dramatically decreased with all of the technology and things that are available. So the cost implications just make that, like, could we please have a pro shot of Natasha and Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812? Like, that would have been brilliant. And so many people didn't get to see that, and it didn't tour.
And I think too, it preserves performances that we love, because one thing Dave and I were talking about are these iconic performances by Robert Preston in The Music Man, or Gene Kelly in every single show musical. He was
in all of the Gene Kelly.
In all of the Gene Kelly musicals.
Or Donald O'Connor.
Yes, make him laugh. I mean, these are iconic performances that are forever preserved on film after the person has gone. And I think of performances like Marin, what was her name? Ragtime.
Yes. I don't know her name right off the after.
Marin Maisie, who just passed away not that long ago. If we had those preserved, there are bootlegs, yes, but bootlegs aren't preserving the performance as they should to do dignity
justice by the actual like performance part of it. And I think of like I saw Carousel with Josh Henry and Jesse Mueller, because I will always see everything with Jesse Mueller. That we don't have a pro shot of Waitress with Jesse Mueller in it. Like, Sarah's gotten better, but Jesse Mueller is still like quintessential, just make you bawl. Like her acting chops are so well developed. But I was thinking about Carousel with her and Josh Henry, but there was I forget who was the ballet dancer, and I forget his name. And of course, if I'd looked this stuff up before, but I don't ever know what we're going to talk about. But I remember watching the choreography and the dance and just being like, it was sublime. And nobody outside of the people who went to see that in the theater will ever get to see that beautiful, sublime performance.
Same with Jagged Little Pill. The choreography, I know we've talked about this, and Jagged Little Pill is so outstanding, and we need a pro shot so people can see it. Although now it's going on the road, so yes. You saw it last week. And
we needed a pro shot of the actual Broadway show. So This is usually I am the biggest purveyor of go see it on the road. The actors and actresses are great. It is not a difference between Broadway and a tour, yada yada. This tour does not have it together yet. This tour has not gelled as a cast. They're still learning. I don't know how long they've been on the road. They are still learning their roles and learning how to interact. And that show is a show that doesn't have space for that to happen on stage. It needs to happen in rehearsal because of all of the heaviness. And I sat there watching it and I was like, they are so disconnected. They're singing the songs, they're doing the choreography, the choreo, the couch scene choreo. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so gut-wrenching. I remember sobbing through most of the show because it touched me so deeply. I remember leaving the show in New York and saying, oh my God, it's everything musicals could ever be, because it's talking about these weighty issues and it's doing so in such a genuine way. And it's lifting, like, we can talk about them because I just was glowing about how powerful this musical was. I came out of the show, I took my mom with me, and I was just like, I'm not going to say anything because it was so. And as we were getting into the car, somebody else, this couple who had also been in the show, walked by us, and they were saying to each other, it was like an after school special. And then the other comment they made was, how many problematic issues can you put into one show, right? Like, and to be fair, we have drug addiction, we have adopting a Black child, we have rape, we have gender identity issues, we have not reporting a rape, we have marital breakdowns, we have like they did kind of throw them all in there. But when I saw it on Broadway, it didn't matter because it all worked. And I know it can work. And as they walked by and they said that, I was like, okay, thank you for helping me know that it wasn't just me that felt the disconnection from the actors. And it wasn't that they didn't want to be doing a good job, that they weren't singing their hearts out but it just felt disconnect. It felt really disconnected. And I was so sad. But anyway.
I hope they find their footing. I trust they will. How is Heidi Blickenstaff? I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly.
Was she the lead?
Yes.
She was okay. But she wasn't. It wasn't in here. Yeah. It was still here. Mm. Like, technically it was perfect. It was great. It was wonderful. But there wasn't that visceral feel it thing yet. And I don't know if it was just an off night. It was their first night here in Seattle and they started 30 minutes late. So, like, again, I had another ticket on Friday and I didn't go. That was like, you know me, I will still go and see it. Right. But no, I was just like, no. So I will go see it again in another city in a few months if I'm in another city where it's at.
It'll be here in February. So I'll be curious to see between now and February.
Excellent, because they will have had some time to gel. Like, I came home and I had to actually play the couch scene for my mom. I'm like, that's what it's supposed to look like. And she was like, yeah, there is a difference. So I was like, I'm sorry, people. I love you. Please know that I love you. and I appreciate all that you are. And I am not in any way demeaning or dismissing your talent. It just hadn't gelled yet. Like, for me as a facilitator of classes, I know when I'm on and I know when I'm not on. Like, I can feel it.
I know Laura. She sounds like a theater critic, and it's okay, but it's all from a place of love. It is all from
Uh-oh.
a place
Did
of
Laura
love.
think I wasn't coming from a place of love?
No, Laura said, "Gosh, so critical, Andrea." Just joking. Just kidding.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, because part of it is I want everybody to know how beautiful and powerful. And this goes back to that the want for the pro shot. Can we please have a pro shot of the thoroughly gelled cast? Right. And we can't now because Jagged Little Pill's cast won't come back, like the original cast won't come back together.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I see Hairspray tomorrow night, and so I'll be interested to see that show too.
Oh yeah.
Post everything. Post COVID, post George Floyd, post.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see Hairspray as well.
That comes to Seattle later in the season. Um yeah. And then we get Moulin Rouge coming up, and we have our local theater doing Into the Woods and Les Mis.
Very nice. We have Les Mis coming as well. In fact, Josh and I, my son and I, were just talking about Les Mis and Cats, the gift that keeps on giving, is coming back as
I'm
well. So,
sorry. Thank
and
you.
here's the thing. So this is so interesting. I was thinking about a theater experience you and I had together, Andrea. Um, I went to a show about a week ago, a play, not a musical, of a show that I have seen a lot. And I'm over it. I don't have to see it anymore. I've seen Steel Magnolias. I love the movie. I just don't need to see it again.
Mhm.
Um, and I went with a woman.
I was like, now I'm curious about what show experience we had together that you're thinking of.
I'm thinking of Waitress, and here's why. Because as I was driving to the theater and I was going with a friend of mine, and she really wanted to see this show because this story means
So
a
much to her.
great deal to her. And as we were coming home, she said, "What did you think of it? What did you think of it?" And I said, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I will go see any play anytime, and I will like something about it. There's always something that I take away. There's always something that I go, huh, I didn't think about that before.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, but this one just happened to not be my cup of tea. And I said to her, it wasn't exactly the thing that speaks to me, but I know how much it means to you, and I'm not going to yuck your yum. And she's like, I love that you said that. And we had a whole conversation about musicals and shows that may not land with us, but truly mean something to other people. And that's why I thought about Waitress, because my experience seeing Waitress with you um, allowed me to see it through a completely different lens. And I think to our conversation on the street with my friend Kim,
Yeah.
because she didn't like Waitress, and how the conversation went, and I thought, yeah, you don't want to yuck someone's yum if this is a show that means a lot to them for whatever reason. And so I thought we could talk about shows that
Shows that we don't like, but that other people do. But I actually
not just shows that we like that other people do or don't like or whatever, but how to, I think everybody's so quick to be a critic now, and being a theater critic, I'm very mindful of this.
Mhm.
And I feel like these are such personal experiences for people that I feel like we need to protect our fellow theater goers.
God, there's
not that we have to
so
like
much.
everything. Not that we have to like everything, but that we have to respect that it may not land with us, but it lands with someone. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the road. It wouldn't be in a theater. It wouldn't be a story that's being told.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I was thinking about that last week when I saw Steel Magnolias, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to yuck your yum. You enjoy it. You
Well, I think there's so many beautiful things that can come out of what you just said. The first is I still to this day think about that conversation that we had with your friend who didn't like Waitress at all, and then she was willing to listen to me share with her why I liked Waitress. But I think one of the reasons why we were able to have that conversation is that I was able to talk to her about it from a more, I'm going to say the words intellectual standpoint, but I was able to articulate what I liked about it in a way that wasn't attached to emotion. Because when we speak about things that we love emotionally, we're not always the greatest articulators, right? Oh, I just love it and it's so good and you have to see it, is different than I really like the way that this character addresses this experience and it was very similar to my experience. So here's the lens I looked at it through, right? Being able to say that had her shift and think about it in a different way to the point that she came back and she was like, I never thought about it that way. And I can totally see where you're like, it gave her the wherewithal to see it from a different space. So that's why these conversations are so important. The other part is you asked, how can we create space to not yuck somebody's yum? Right? We've talked about this before. You know that I am not a Wicked fan. And I'm not a Wicked fan from a couple of different things. One, I've seen it, I've tried to watch it, I've seen it so many times, and I'm like, please, and then I'm like, no, I can't. One is I read the book before I saw the show, and the book has a very, very different, in-depth take on different things, and I find the musical lacking in comparison. And so I'm able to say it's just not my cup of tea, but I can understand other people who really love it and it really spoke to them. So, how do we have these conversations? We get curious. We get out of ourselves and we disconnect from, if they don't like the same thing I do, there's something wrong, right? Like, I wasn't trying to convince your friend to like Waitress. I then, because if I was attached to my emotions around it, oh, but it's so good, it's amazing, oh, you got to see this, right? Then I'm now trying to convince her that this thing that I love, she should love too, right? And that's not, if she doesn't like it already, now we have this like conflict. So with that, the space to get curious and ask her, well, what didn't you like? And she had the space to ask me, well, share with me what you did like. And we had this conversation around it from a place above that emotional attachment to it and from a place of curiosity, right? I will still talk about Wicked. I've seen it enough. I'm fully versed. I can have conversations with it. The person who has seen Wicked, this is our friend Chelsea, who is obsessed with Wicked. I think she's seen it over 150 times in the theater. Like, legit. She and I can have a great conversation about Wicked because I really want to know what has had her go see that so many times. What does it resonate with her? What does she get from it each time? What takes her back to it? I can disconnect with, I really don't like it, I never really need to see it again, with how does it impact her that that's something that she really likes? So it's coming from a place of curiosity around what the person connects to.
Laura said she saw Wicked 2 or 3 times, and I agree with you. I think it's I feel like, and I don't want to get too grandiose or anything, but I feel like if we can have these conversations from a place of curiosity, then that trains our brains to have difficult conversations about other things from a place of curiosity. And that is why I think theater and art and books and anything that we can use as a gateway to have conversations from a place of curiosity is a good thing. That's what art does. That's what, whether that's what art does. That's why I love it so. Anyway, all right, end of TED Talk. That's my TED Talk.
You step off yours, and I'm going to get on the stage on my little red dot for my TED Talk. No, so related to your conversation about this is what art does, right? Like, and I really think this is why art and story are important. But even more so, this is why conversations and teaching about art and story are important. Because you can just go and you can consume it and you can have that connection, but when you don't talk about it, when you don't elevate that just a little to have some sense of self-reflection or some sense of learning about it in the bigger sphere, then it's just like going to the movies. Then it's just like going, like it's consuming, it's there, you're still connected and like there's stuff to get from it. But the power of theater and arts is in the critical conversations. And by critical, I don't mean negative. It means looking at it and understanding, what does this character do? What is this character arc? And why is this arc important? And what happened that like that layer, the critical thinking layer on top of the art is what's important, because art is the explanation of somebody's human experience through story, through music, through visual or physical expression, dance, etc. But then it's also like that, the critical layer of what does that mean to me? What can I interpret from it? Which is always going to be layered in my own personal stuff, because that's how we come to the world. But also then in what did the person mean in putting that together? Why did they put this here and this is it? And how did that come together? Like that is the beauty of that. And I was at the doctor's this morning doing some physical therapy for my lovely numb toes. Hello, everybody. I have some sort of blockage in my sciatic nerve and my peroneal nerve, which means my whole left half of my left leg is a little bit numb, and the doctors don't know what's going on with that. So I was at the next doctor who I was meeting for the first time, and something came up about him trying to convince his daughter not to pursue arts or history as a scholarly endeavor, and wanting her to pursue a better profession that where she could make more money. And I was like, well, you know what? It was that opportunity that I got to have with him to say, well, there is a benefit to a liberal arts focused profession. Like, I have a degree in English and a master's degree in linguistics because I wanted to teach English as a second language and go travel, yada, yada. Where I ended up with that degree is a whole place that I couldn't have imagined at that time when I was getting said degrees. But I also remember my grandparents going, oh man, we saw this doctor today and I thought, oh, she looks like my granddaughter. And then we remembered, oh no, my granddaughter got a degree in English. And you're like, they were not happy with me. But I got to share with him, I was like, it was my degree in English and studying story and other things that give my brain a wider perspective and that allow me to do all of the things that I'm doing now are because of this exposure to arts and literature and dance and creativity and strategic thinking and the arts, right? Like it all comes together. And apparently I am like Italian. I have to talk with my hands. And
I love it. I love it though.
So that's my TED Talk. I'm taking my step off the stage.
The other thing that strikes me about musicals. Is something that Dave mentioned to me, and I piggybacked on. He said that he feels there's a skepticism when it comes to movie musicals.
Mhm.
And his feeling was that people think they're corny or silly. Okay, I can buy that. I also think there's a skepticism because through the lens of 2022, um, a lot of musicals are not politically correct. And yet, I think there is still something to be learned if you contextualize where these musicals are coming from, that period of time, what was happening in America, what was happening to women, what was happening to um,
Yeah.
blacks, to Latins, to Asians, what was happening. And I think musicals paint a really interesting picture of our American history because so much of the things that we say people are trying to erase, you find in musicals, because it is a more palatable way to share some of those stories, some of that history. And so what my argument to him was, I don't think people always feel that skepticism because it's corny. I think people feel that skepticism because it makes them uncomfortable and
Yeah.
they're not sure how to um, compartmentalize it in its historical or political perspective that it's being presented in.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see that, and I hadn't thought about it in that way. Where my brain took that is, I think that that's applicable to movies and literature also, because there are some movies that I loved as a teenager that I watch now, and I'm like, oh, good God, oh no, like I loved John Hughes movies. Okay, Pretty in Pink. Um, all of his movies are completely problematic. Completely. At the same time, I think exactly what you were saying is they give us a window to what life was like where we can watch them and we can look at that from, like, honestly, there needs to be a John Hughes semester of exploring that in what it says about that period in time in, I mean, and I'm going to say it, in white suburban America, right?
Yes.
Like, because John Hughes film The Breakfast Club, brilliant film, but also incredibly, with Tamir, my ex-husband is a beautiful, wonderful black human, and we watched that, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not my high school experience. I do not associate with that. It does not resonate with me at all." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I hadn't really thought about that way because it was my high school experience, and like all of that, but." There is an opportunity. It gives you the opportunity to look through that lens. Also, bring. I think it was Bring It On. I think it was Bring It
Yes.
On, like the actual movie that came out in 2000, that has that's incredibly sexually offensive. It's horrible. I watched it in a hotel room while getting ready for something one day, and it was on in the background, and I found myself looking over going, did that just have, what the actual, like, that was okay in that movie, and in today's Me Too environment that would not, like, no, he just sexually assaulted her and everybody laughed about it. That's not okay. So I think that is actually, I'm like, that's what the critical theory classes in literature were about. You take it, you look at the text, and you look at it in relationship to the time period, to the cultural issues, to the civil and governmental issues. Like, you peel into that. Where I find movie musicals or musicals in general is also, like, there can be a layer of cheese that goes with it. There's also a layer of, often music and lyrics allows us to express things that we can't express in words. But most of the musicals that have been on film aren't those musicals. They're more of the song and dance spectacle musicals where you get a whole bunch of things where it's just like, hey, we need to throw a song in here. And they don't actually convey the emotion the way that we know that they can in the theater, right? The movie musicals that got made at a time where they were like, where they were there for entertainment. Yay, right? Like I remember Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, right? Like I grew up, even Annie, but Annie is on that, like you can look at that as a time capsule of what was going on in the world and what was okay. What was the other one that just came to mind? Grease.
Grease, yes.
Grease was absolutely a musical that conveyed emotions and thoughts that were deeper than just that song and dance. Right? That dug deeper in issues, right? Like, but also the fact that I saw it when I was 8 and 10 and had no idea that, like, what's her name being pregnant was even part of the script until I saw it again at 19 and was like, oh, that's what that was about. Oh, right? Like, so.
And Laura mentioned in on the YouTube chat about The King and I and Flower Drum Song.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find so interesting about The King and I, and I'm going to say about My Fair Lady too, the most recent revivals, and I'm going to throw these shows in together because Bartlett Shear, I think, is a genius director, is when he reimagined those shows and he didn't change anything. It wasn't like Dark Oklahoma where he changed the shows. He didn't. But the way he directed it, he shifted the focus and the way the characterizations were presented. I very much realized that The King and I was this empowerment story, not about Llewellyn Davies, not about
the king,
not about the main character, not about the English teacher.
Oh, okay.
It was very much a story about his main wife and how she really, through her, how she really resourcefully exercised her power over the king. And that became abundantly clear to me when I saw the revival. And I really enjoyed the revival on stage. And the same with My Fair Lady. It was less about the love interest between Eliza and Professor Higgins. It was much more
You
of
mean
an
the grooming
story of Eliza than and the madness. What I loved about the revival of My Fair Lady is they really showed this downward spiral of madness that Higgins went down as Eliza became more empowered and independent. And I loved it. I was totally here for it. I was like, I'm in. Just
because you can't all of a sudden give her all of these tools that she never had before, or you can, and you can groom her, and now she's your pet, right? Which is what the movie is. Or you give her these tools, she develops a sense of agency as the result of having these tools, and now you have to contend with her as an actual peer. Like now she is an equal to you. Now she is somebody who has a voice of her own, who has ideas and opinions other than the ones that you've equipped her with. Which, like, if you can find the love with that, awesome. But like, I was fine. I was totally here for that with that. I'm sorry, but you called it the Dark Oklahoma. I was just laughing because it's like Bad Cinderella. It was like Dark Oklahoma.
Not my favorite. Not my favorite. The Dark Oklahoma revival, and my reason there is not because I didn't appreciate what they did. I did, but I don't like it when you veer so much from the source material that the source material becomes unrecognizable. I
Mm.
think there has to be I think there's a happy medium, and I thought Oklahoma went too far for the sake of going too far. I
Hmm.
don't know that it was a conscientious thing as much of as a marketing thing. I don't know. I didn't feel
I
there was
love
an
this conversation.
authenticity
Can we
to
have
what they
more
were
of this
doing.
conversation? This like so I can't say I loved Dark Oklahoma because oh my god, it like sat with me for days after it was so heavy. And I really appreciated that about it. And I didn't have that same feeling of it doing it just to do it. Like it wasn't being dramatic or changing things just to like shock value. Or at least that was not the way I took it in.
Hmm.
But I can totally see how you experienced it from what you shared. For me, I like hearing you say it veered from the source material, and I was like, I remember my reaction was, I do want to just go home and watch the original because I want the happy. But I like, I'm sorry, Poor Judd is Dead is the most horrible, horrific song ever. And in the original, it was like, great, we're going to sing that song now. I'm like, it is a person singing to a person about how they should kill themselves. Like, it is disgusting. And they really brought that to it. And I was just like, they brought some of those unintentionally dark parts, skipped
Hmm.
over dark parts because that was the culture and that capsule of time that those existed in. And I really liked thinking about it from the different perspectives. Again, I wasn't about to go see it again because I was like, okay, that's enough. Oh. But like it had me think about things in a very different way. And it was I very much enjoyed not enjoying it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I hadn't thought about it from the perspective that you had shared of it. It was just doing too much.
Um, so Laura's saying she's watched Pygmalion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that if you watched the film version of My Fair Lady that you would glean the same takeaway that was part of this most recent revival.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those were choices on the part of the director and Shireen Ahmed, who made a beautiful Eliza.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura said she hasn't seen Oklahoma, but it's interesting to know about the song. I would say anybody should watch Oklahoma because it's picking it apart. Even the old Golden Age film, it's dark, just like Carousel. I mean, there's so many of
Oh,
these shows
Carousel
that
is
have a
so dark.
darkness. Yeah.
It's really dark. And like I remember when I was taking singing classes when I was in the when I was in 7th grade and 8th grade and I was taking singing classes, they were having me sing I'm just a girl who can't say no. I'm in a terrible fix. I always say, come on, let's go. Just when I ought to say nix. Like that line, just singing it now gave me the icky feelings because, hi, welcome to women. Welcome to women who say yes to things that they don't want to say yes to because they're afraid of disappointing men.
Yeah.
Welcome to Grooming 101 through musical theater. And like to be able to look at that stuff from this perspective now, I think is important. And it is going back to these movie musicals that we can now look at through a very different eye.
And I will say that my biggest problem with most recent revival of The Music Man. And it's funny, I just heard some of the cast recording of this new version, but hearing Hugh Jackman, and we all know how I feel about Hugh Jackman,
Yeah.
but hearing him sing Marion the Librarian, it's cringy to me. It's so cringy. And just his portrayal of Harold Hill was cringy to me because it made me see things about the show that I never saw before, and I'm not sure that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, I think I don't know. I think I always saw Harold Hill as cringy. Always. I mean, he's a snake oil salesman
He is,
that for the purposes of the show, you get to see like a, a nicer side, or he falls in love or sees the error of his ways. Bullshit, he doesn't. Right? Like it's a momentary thing, but this is the life that this man has led his whole entire life. And he uses it successfully to get Marion's attention. There is no actual change that he really goes through. It is just that highlight moment, and then they will get married, and then life will suck. Like realistically, there is nothing that is good about that whole scenario. It goes back to female grooming.
yeah, that and it
And I will
very
continue
much,
to use that language, that is the way that society grooms women to stay in our lane. And
yes,
she was a prude, and she needed to be brought out of her prudishness, and she needed to this. Like, no, she actually knew what she wanted. I mean, at least I mean, because I'm a Sutton fan, because oh my God, Sutton Lenore, oh, she's amazing. But but she was counter to Jackman's Harold Hill. She presented like the no, I don't need you. Right? Like
yes,
she was a strong female and created a different characterization than you see. She wasn't just a shrew who didn't like him. Like she was strong and comfortable and confident and did not need anything else. And
yes,
so and this honestly brings us all the way back to why we should have pro shots of all of these musicals, because you can't actually compare how it was portrayed in this setting. Like, can you look at a pro shot of dark Oklahoma and then watch Oklahoma and then compare and see the difference? No, because there's no pro shot. Right? There's only whoever saw it in the theater to tell
right.
you about it, right? You have no way of experiencing something of it unless, I mean, I hear that they take a video of everything, and you can go to the library
Lincoln Center.
in Lincoln Center and watch it, but that's not something everybody's going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those shots are not actual pro shots. Those
No,
are
they're just filmed.
archival
Yeah.
archival.
They're archival, right? But why not archive it correctly with a pro shot?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Laura's like, yay, yes.
Yay. I'm 100% with you there. So once again, it is almost 8:30.
Do you want to bring Laura up
Yes, Laura, come
for
hang
the
with us.
last 5 minutes? Come hang out on stage.
Um, I also will say, I went to see Randy Rainbow.
I saw that. I've seen him here in Seattle, and he is lovely and a joy, but you got to meet and talk to him, yes?
For like a whole 2 seconds, but
yeah.
for a whole 2 seconds, but and he seemed lovely, but um somebody asked him how he comes up with these songs and how he picks and chooses, and he said, I think in I think in show tunes. And I was like, and this is why I love you.
I do. I think in show tunes, I mean, I taught a class the other day and I was like, you all need to know ahead of time. It's a 4-hour class that's a 4-week, 4-hour class. So once a week for 4 hours for a month. And I was like, I need you to know up front, I am a musical theater nerd. I think in musical theater references, and you will hear many of them. You may not know them, but I will make myself laugh. I will tell you about them, and then we will proceed. But like, it's going to happen. So,
So Laura is saying, yes, Sutton, yes, Randy. Laura, I invited you to come up on the stage here if you would like to. I think you can turn your video on.
yeah.
And if you don't want to, that's okay too.
So Lauren, until she joins us up here, what should we talk about next week?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about next week? Here, let me invite Laura again. She asked me.
I invited her too.
We keep inviting you.
I know. You have to accept our invitation.
Yeah. So
I think next week we're getting closer to the holidays, and I would like to talk about and just throwing it out here. You can counter me and we can go a different direction. But as we come on to the Thanksgiving is a day and holidays are a season, but as we come into this season, I would love to maybe talk about characters that inspire us from a place of giving us perspective on gratitude and who we want, like embodying that sort of like being grateful for who they are or are able to capture that. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense to me. I don't know, Laura, why it's not letting you do that.
You will just have to join next time.
It's saying it won't let Laura come up. And we're almost out of time anyway,
Yeah.
but I like that idea about gratitude. And I was going to say, we have a lot of musicals coming down the pike. We have Spirited, which I didn't know much about until recently on Apple. We have Disenchanted, and we have Matilda. So it'll be very exciting.
I know. And we have Coloring Broadway is working on our Matilda stuff as we speak.
Yay.
So there is that coming down the thing. But yeah, I think there's some new musicals. Will Spirited be out by the time that we talk next?
I don't think so, but Disenchanted will, I think. I feel like it's coming out very soon. Next week. So we can talk about all the things, but I like the idea of gratitude and those. Hello, Deborah. Deborah, hello, how are you?
I know.
Deborah's a cool cat. Deborah, this is kind of the end of the show, so this is when we invite people to come up. Deborah, I'm going to see if it works for you. I'm going
to try and invite her up too. Invite to video.
She's cool. She's a producer. Ananth knows her. She popped on
when you and Ananth were on.
When Ananth and I were so I invited you to come up, Deborah. Oh, she's here.
Laura, apparently Fireside doesn't like you today. Sorry. We'll get you next time.
Hey,
I'm so sorry I'm late. What were you talking about? I just came up because you asked me to, and it works.
Yay. I'm so happy it works. Deborah, you have a show too about theater. You're a theater nerd like we are. We were talking about shows. We were talking a lot about movie musicals tonight because I have a podcast that's going to drop tomorrow where I interviewed someone from Turner Classic Movies. But I know you have a show too.
Yes, I'm not a producer, actually. I'm a musician and a composer.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, but I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. I can't believe I missed this. I love movie musicals. I don't want you to repeat what you said, but I wish I was. Maybe I'll watch the replay and I'll hear it.
Please watch the replay. My podcast with Dave Karger from Turner Classic Movies is going to drop tomorrow on Beltline to Broadway. And we talk about Dave's new series on Turner Classic Movies, which is called musical matinees. It's on Sundays or Saturdays at noon. And he's got some
Fantastic.
really interesting titles that he's going to be showing over the next few weeks. And so we talk about everything from 42nd Street to Annie.
Oh my God. That's going to be great. And I'm going to go back and watch this replay too.
Yeah, the replay, we really kind of riff and go all sorts of different places, which is kind of the whole reason we have this little fireside chat in the first place. Is Lauren and I like take a thread and we follow it all around wherever wherever it leads us.
Is
So
anybody talking about the Broadway Museum that opened up 2
we did
days?
not talk about that, but we could also add that into our discussion next week. So
Great.
Deborah, are you based in New York? Have you been there
Yeah.
yet?
I am here, and I just 3 months ago I played the Tina Turner musical on Broadway,
Ah.
and I had such a great time on that musical. I'll tell you, it's on tour now. If you can get a chance to see it, if it comes to your town, please go.
Lauren, did you see it on Broadway? I got to see it on Broadway. It was phenomenal.
I did not see it on Broadway. I will see it here on tour. And Deborah, did you, I don't know, Ananth had mentioned to me at some point, and maybe I'm imagining this. Were you also involved in Jersey Boys somehow?
Yes, I was the associate conductor, keyboard one player of Jersey Boys for the last 6 years of the show.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It was a joy to play that music every night. And the great thing is I got to conduct it in one chair and in the other chair just play keyboards on it. So I got to be in 2 different chairs and learn 2 different books on it. And it's the most well-crafted show that works every single night with every audience that watches it. I've never experienced a show like that. It's unbelievable.
It really does. It works on so many levels, and it just brings everybody in. And that music is so intoxicating is the word that came to mind right off the bat. Like it just takes you for a ride and it lifts you up, and it's lovely.
And the book is so wonderful, which is the hardest thing to get right in a musical, but they got it right.
Yeah, they
got
did.
it. Yeah.
Well, Deborah, are you part of Maestra? Are you?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Woo!
I am.
I love that organization. I am not a musician, but I just love the work.
Just play one on TV.
Oh, maybe you should get Georgia Stitt on here, who founded it. That would be an amazing thing if you guys interviewed Georgia. I don't know. Might be a fun thing.
I would love that.
Would be amazing.
We just saw her at 54 Below. We were together. We saw her at 54 Below. And I would love that. That would be amazing. And Deborah, we'll have to have you come on another night, and maybe you can be a guest and
oh
talk
my
about
gosh,
your
I would
musical
love
experiences.
That's great. Thank you.
Oh, we would love that. I would love that. So yeah, Lauren, I can go a little longer, but I know you always have a hard stop.
I have a
put
hard
myself
stop.
back in the audience. But thank you so much. I'll stay for the end.
Thank you, Deborah. And I'm going to reach out to you about being on the show. But anyway, I just always love I love theater people, and I love our Monday nights together. So this is lovely.
Well, and I love that I love, you love, we all love. It's a love fest. But it really is the opportunity for us to take the musicals. I mean, you started off talking about movie musicals, and we went to these really deep, thick, thoughtful places around what their role in society is, what we can learn from them, what the characters study. I mean, we talked about arts education and the importance of that and how it can actually expand your brain and do amazing things that apply in other parts of your world. Like, I love that it's not just this one like layer. It's like it's a multi-layered cake, because apparently it's dinner time for me and I'm hungry. But I just really love the opportunity, and I love that our title is "And I Know Things Now," because it gives us all of that space to talk about whatever shows up. So for next week, we'll dig into characters that represent maybe the spirit of the season that's about to be upon us. So gratitude, thoughtfulness, generosity, etc. So that's where we'll start next week, and who knows where we'll end up, because it will go on the same sort of like spaghetti, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks way that we have of having these conversations. But we'll start with like characters that represent generosity and gratitude.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Deborah and Laura, for joining and hanging out with us, and we'll see you all next Monday night.
Next Monday night at 7:30 Eastern or 4:30 Pacific time, as it gets me out of work early.
All right, Andrea. So I will see you next week, and Laura and Deborah.